Okay, here is the video lecture part A for my lifespan class at Bridgemont Community and Technical College. I think we left off somewhere about here Wednesday night. I'm going to go ahead and finish off the rest of this PowerPoint here with a series of video lectures. So you'll want to have your PowerPoint packet that I gave you in front of you to take notes on. You'll definitely need that. So we'll go ahead and go through here. I think the last thing we talked about was poverty. We talked about relative versus absolute poverty and how that affects the development of human beings. We also talked about the feminization of poverty, the idea that more women are impoverished because of the way society is structured. We could talk about how women are making less money than men on the hour for doing the same job. We could talk about how women are still doing the lion's share of the day-to-day stuff with their children that costs money, running gas out of their cars, paying for soccer, paying for cheerleading, buying food. Even in relationships where couples have split or divorced, even if men are paying every month for child support, still women are paying probably more than men to raise children and making less money while they're doing it. So that can explain why a lot of women are, more women than men are impoverished, as I'm playing with my camera to make sure that I get it right here. More on women in poverty in the U.S. In 1960, 25% of all poor households were headed by women. In 2001, 51%. In 2004, it was still 51%. In 1980, women earned approximately 60 cents for every male dollar. In 2008, it was up to 77 cents. And fast forward to today, you're looking at close to 81 cents for doing per hour for every male dollar for doing exactly the same thing that men do. So now we're going to talk a little bit about poverty on a global basis. We know that poverty can definitely affect the development of humans. We've definitely seen that in the case of Michael in one of the very first PowerPoint presentations that I showed you guys in class. Worldwide, 1 out of every 6 people live at or below the poverty level. So this gives you an idea of how many people in the world live in poverty. Now, if we want to look at the U.S., certainly in the U.S. we have less people who are poor when you compare to other parts of the world like third world nations or developing countries. Poverty has actually been defined by the government. As of 2007, the U.S. Census Bureau defined poverty for a family of 3 with 1 child. So that would be a man and a woman or significant other, however you want to say that, and 1 child. If you make more than $16,689, you were considered to be above the poverty level. So you can imagine if you're making $17,000 a year and you have a significant other and a child, it's going to be really tough to make it on that. But you're still not going to qualify for benefits that come with being defined as being poor or being in poverty. And certainly we could start talking about how that impacts the development of people, of human beings. And you can kind of look and see $41,000, that is $691 a year. That might sound like a pretty good chunk of change, but when you think of it in terms of a family of 9, and then you take out taxes, and you're looking at closer to $33,000, really probably. It's tough. It would be tough, if not impossible, to live well with 9 people in a family making about $33,000 after taxes a year. So, poverty and age in the U.S. The problem with poverty is that most people who are poor are children. You may have a woman or a family of adults who are poor, and a lot of times we chastise them or we pass judgment on them because we think they're lazy or they're leeching off the system or maybe they're manipulating the welfare system. And certainly that happens, but the vast majority of people who are poor are children. They're children. People at the bottom of the social class system, like in the lower strata of the class structure, have the most children. They have the biggest families. Therefore, the people who are most likely to be poor are having the most children on top of that. So that creates some problems. You can see the numbers here in 2001 and 2004 respectively. Today, close to 18% of all poor people are under the age of 18. And childhood poverty rates are especially high among minorities, especially African American children. Poverty and race ethnicity in the United States. In 2001, you can see the trends. African Americans and Latinos are very much overrepresented amongst the ranks of the poor. In 2001, you can see almost 23% of all African Americans were defined as being poor. Almost, 21.5% of Latinos defined as being poor. In 2004, it was almost 25% of African Americans being defined as poor, and 21.9% of Latinos. Conversely, smaller numbers of Caucasians and Asians are defined as being poor. So again, we can talk about how development flows based on income or poverty in terms of race or ethnicity. And we have two different views of poverty. We have what's called subcultural views of poverty, and we have structural views of poverty. Subcultural views of poverty basically purport that we should blame the poor people. Blame those who are poor for being poor. You get a job, go to school, make a better life for yourself. You can change your future. And in some cases this is true. In some cases people can change their lot in life and can change their situation. There are some people who are lazy and who choose not to go through the avenue of gainful employment. However, there are some people who really can't help themselves. There are some people who are mentally impaired, maybe developmentally impaired, physically impaired. Maybe they just don't have the wherewithal to secure employment for a myriad of reasons. Maybe the way society is structured. So now we're looking at structural views of poverty. Maybe the area that people live in is just so deteriorated, and there are just no jobs, and people can't afford to get up and move, that they really can't do much about it. And the children who are born to these families really have no control. So maybe in this case it would be more appropriate to look at structural views of poverty. But at any rate, the development of children and adults in these impoverished conditions can't be ignored. So, and we're going to call that the end of that part. Thanks.